ஜென்ரேட்டர் ஓடிட்டு இருக்கு.
ஜென்ரேட்டர்
ஏசி போடல
இல்லை கரெக்டாக
ஓடிட்டு இருக்கு. சரி. स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वम् सच्चित्सुखं परमहंसगतिं तुरीयम् यत्स्वप्नजागर सुषुप्तिमवैति नित्यम् तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्घः प्रातर्भजामि मनसा वचसामगम्यम् वाचो विभान्ति निखिला यदनुग्रहेण यन्नेति नेति वचनैर्निगमाः वोचुः तं देवदेवमजमच्युतम् आहुरग्र्यम् प्रातर्नमामि तमसः परमर्कवर्णम् पूर्णं सनातनपदं पुरुषोत्तमाख्यम् यस्मिन् इदं जगदशेषम् अशेषमूर्तौ रज्ज्वां भुजङ्गमयिव प्रतिभासितं वै रज्ज्वां भुजङ्गमः इव. Like the snake, the serpent is pratibhasitam. Pratibhasitam is seen to, is thought of to exist on the road. Ashesh, so to, like even the snake is seen to exist, said to exist, seen to exist in ignorance of what is there, the rope. So adhishtanam, the rope here is called adhishtanam, the basis on which something which is other than the adhishtanam is superimposed. Here, other than the adhishtanam, the rope, what is other than the adhishtanam here? The snake. The snake is not the rope. That snake is aropita. The snake is aropita, whereas the rope is adhishtanam. So when the adhishtanam is not known, then aropita apparent appears. When what is there is not understood, what is there is not known, then what is not there appears, shows up, as if it were there. When we say that what is not there shows up, it is not that an entity called snake comes into being. It does not come into being. In my buddhi, in my thinking, there is that snake. It's a buddhi kalpita. It is called kapola kalpita. Kalpita, imagined by one's own mind. Kapola kalpitam, it's called. So the snake is not a true entity, only thought of to exist. Rajvam bhujangamaha iva. So too, this prapancha of names and forms, this is kalpita, is superimposed at both levels, at pratibhasika and also at the vyavaharika level. So the world of names and forms is aropita on ashesha murtau, that which assumes all forms. The very fact that it assumes all forms shows that it is free from any of these forms. So the formless, amurtaha. Amurtaha. Murta here is form, having form. Murti is form. Murta is formful, having a form. Amurta means free from any forms. Here forms indicate limitation. When you say it has a form, something, the table has a form, means it has a size, it has a dimension, it has a shape, beyond which it is not there. Right? So say by 2 feet by 1.5 feet, that is the size of the table. Beyond that, the table is not. So when you say murta, formful means limitation, with limitation. Ishvara, Atma Tattvam, is free from all such limitations. Even the notion of the idea of limitation, right? To whom does it show up? This is limited. Who is the one who knows that such and such thing is limited? That is a sakshi. That something is limited is also evident to the sakshi, I. Therefore, that there is a limitation itself is evident. The limited, and that it has limitation is evident to me, the sakshi. Like even how big is the table? This by this many feet by that many feet. So that is evident to whom? To me, the sakshi. Therefore, the limited entity becomes evident to the what is really limitless. What is the limit for sakshi? Who would say? Who is there to say? Who is there for to whom it is evident? It is going to be evident that Atma, the sakshi, has limitation. Atma is this much size. Atma has this much weight. There are assumptions presented in certain books. They say Atma assumes the size of the body. The body it assumes the size of the body itself. Like even a balloon, right? A balloon is filled by the air. How big is the balloon? As much the air fills, so big the balloon becomes. Right? Similarly, Atma has the size of, right, the body. Some people think so. That's why they say in an elephant's body, it's a bigger Atma. In an ant's body, it is smaller Atma, they say. So that is not the vision. That's not the vision seen in the Upanishads. Atma, and also they say Atma has weight. They also, somebody even said it has a weight. I don't know, something very strange, okay? It seems, it's made someone who is about to die, find the weight of the body. And then after the person dies, find the weight of the body. Then they say so many milligrams is the weight of the soul. There is something like that. They say. So the soul weighs so many milligrams, so many micrograms, like something they say. It's all strange. Okay. So the size or weight, etc., Atma is free from that, free from limitations. That there is a limitation, that something is limited is evident to me. That I am limited, there is no Sakshi, there is Nissakshikam. If I were to be limited, then that I am limited must be evident to something else. That is to some other Atma. Atma number 2. And then then the question will arise, what is the size of that Atma, second Atma within me? So it will be Anavastha, an endless proposition here. Therefore, there is no pramana, there is no validity to say that Atma is limitation. Therefore, it is Asesha Murtau, free from all forms, and in that all forms Jagat Asesham Pratibhasitam, the entire Jagat Prapancha Shwasa. Shvetaketu is a son of a great rishi, Uddalaka. Uddalaka, Aruni, a great rishi, a person of great learning. Shvetaketu asks his father, teach me, tells his father, tell me the truth, absolute truth, tell me that, teach me that. Then Uddalaka points out, says that all this is Atma, all this is Brahman, which is called Sat, Sadeva Saumya, Idam Agre Asit, Ekam Eva Advitiyam. This is the Chandogya Upanishad. Hey Soumya, oh dear son, all this here that we see, that we know, that we think, that we know and we don't know, known and unknown, that prapancha, that universe, is all before it came into being, it came into manifestation, it was all only Sat. Sat, Brahma alone was there, free from all names and forms. Then it assumed names and forms. That is the creation. So, the creation is not something like this. It's not that what is non-existent comes into existence. That is not the meaning here, but here it is a manifestation. You have name and form which was not there. Now that name and form comes into being. So here it is Srishti. The word Srishti we understand as manifestation, not as creation. Okay. So all this was only Sat. And now also it is Sat. And this is your Atma, this is you the Atma, Aitadatmyam Idam Sarvam. All this is of the nature of that Atma, Brahma alone. The truth of all this is Atma, Brahma. Then Tattvamasi. Sa Atma, Tattvam Asi. Hey, that is Atma, you are that Shvetaketu. This is the teaching. There he demonstrates by considering a pot, our clay pot. We keep clay pot here because Uddalaka told Shvetaketu. Otherwise, how would we know clay pot and all that? It is said in the Upanishad itself. That time itself, the clay pot has been there. For this is Mrittika Ityeva Satyam. What is made up of mud, clay, Mrittika? That is only Vacharambanam. It's only Vak. Vak means name. That's all. Just a name. Pot is just a name. There is no being called pot. The existence is only notional. Of course, for easy transaction, we say pot, make pot, buy pot, keep the pot, etc. For easy transaction. But just because we keep on using the word pot, just because we find some specific use for that form, does not make it a separate entity. An entity which was non-existent before now comes into being. So here it is only, pot is only Vacharambanam. Arambana began by something which begins with a name, that's all. Starts with a name, that's all. It's just a name. name and form. Vikara, all that modification is only Vacharambanam. Namadeyam, Namamatram, just a name. Then what is the truth? Mrittika ityeva satyam. Mrittika means clay. Mud alone, the clay alone is the truth. He demonstrates very beautifully, shows that Vacharambanam, Vikara, Namadeyam. Then he extends this to all this, the world of names and forms. All names and forms are only, the Prapancha is only names and forms. That is not a separate entity from Satvastu. And therefore, in ignorance or out of Maya Shakti, this Prapancha manifests. So, this is Pratibhasitam. Idam Jagat, Ashesham Jagat, the entire universe is Pratibhasitam. It shows up, right? It manifests, it shows up, it shines. Like even the snake manifests on the rope. So, by saying that, what the Acharya says, what is there is only Atma, Brahma, Ishvara alone. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagate. Ishavasya Upanishad declares the very first sentence. All this is here, all that is here is Ishavasyam. Vasyam means to be understood, to be covered, to be understood as Isha, Ishvara, as the Lord only. And then later on in some other elsewhere, in some other Upanishad, Megha Nasti Kinchana, there is no manyness whatsoever. There is no duality as truth. It is not there whatsoever. For transaction, yes, but then transaction does not imply reality, absolute reality. Transaction is transaction, that's all. You don't have to stretch it, take it to mean reality. Reality is one question. What is reality? What never undergoes sublation, dismissal. What is dismissed into something else. What is not dismissed is Satyam. Like even we, on analysis, we find that the pot is only clay, there is no pot. The pot, the truth of the pot, the reality of the pot is dissolves. It dissolves in the truth of the clay. Itself, it does not have any reality, existence on its own. So such an object, such an entity like the pot is called Badita. It is Badita, sublated. The truth of it is sublated. Sublated when I understand what is there, what is really there, the substance I understand. So what is Baditam is not absolutely true, is not Paramarthika. What is Baditam can be Vyavaharika or Pratibhasika, but it can never be Paramarthika. What is Paramarthika then? Abaditam, what can never be dismissed, dissolved into something else as a dependent entity, that is Abaditam. Sakshi is Abaditam, Atma Brahma, Sat is Abaditam, Ishvara is Abaditam. And that alone is the Satyam, that alone is the Paramarthika. What undergoes Badha, sublation, is not Paramarthika. It may be Vyavaharika or Pratibhasika. Pratibhasika is only apparent, it appears, there is an appearance, that's all. A thing which has just an appearance but no transactional value. It cannot be transacted with. That is called Pratibhasika, an illusory entity, an apparent entity. Like the shell silver, rope snake, then mirage water. We see blue sky, right? We see the mirage water, but I cannot drink that water. I see shell silver, but that silver is worthless. I cannot use that silver. Only for appearance it is there, but no transaction, no interaction, no relation, no utility for it. that is the pratibhasika. Our swapna, our dream also is pratibhasika. It has no transactional value, it is not there. What about vyavaharika then? It has an appearance and it has an utility, relatable, it's relatable, there is transaction, there is utility, there is usefulness, and also there is continuity also. In fact, in dream also some sort of continuity is there, but that is very flimsy, right? The continuity itself is very discontinuous there. Whereas in the waking state, the continuity is predictable, predictability is there. This table, I can assume safely that it will continue to be a table tomorrow also. Tomorrow also when I come, the very same table I can see. There is continuity and there is usefulness. This table is very useful. That wood, that round log of wood from which this is made, cannot be used in this way, right? I can substitute, I can use it in a sort of a table, but not with this ease, not with this facility I can use. For there is usefulness, there is continuity, and not only that, it is available for common experience. You see the table, I also see the table, right? All of us see the table. There is commonness of this perception, perceived by all, seen by all. There is continuity. This is vyavaharika. There is appearance and also there is utility, relatable it is. That is vyavaharika. Our jagrat prapancha, our waking state, we meet people and then we have activities and all that. They are all vyavaharika. Dream is pratibhasika and then jagrat, waking state is vyavaharika. Just because something is useful does not mean it is abhadita, it is paramarthika. Just because something has continuity, it does not mean it is abhadita. Like even my good old pot has continuity. It was there yesterday also, today also it is there, right? So it has continuity. Just because it is continuous, it does not mean it is satyam. Continuity does not mean satyatvam. Also, usefulness does not mean satyatvam. Paramarthikatvam is not. Just because the pot is useful does not make pot into another entity different from clay. So usefulness, continuity, and then seen by all of us see this. Just because all of us see the pot does not become a true entity. That does not become the truth. So like even we see the blue sky, we all see blue sky, we all see, therefore the sky must be blue. Not a rule, there is no such rule. Reality is one thing, whereas continuity, usefulness, etc., commonly perceived, etc., these are different, they are different. There is no connection between these two. Useful, therefore true. There is no connection. Continuous, therefore true. Has continuity, therefore true. There is no connection here. The therefore true is the problem. And also one more factor is here, as we said earlier, intimacy. I intimately look at this. When I suppose by mistake I hit my foot against a stone, against a rock, right? And then I have a wounded toe and then I put on medicine and then bandage. If the stone were not true, then how would I have injured my toe? Just because I injured my toe, that is true, a real stone, true stone. I injured my toe, all right. That does not make stone a paramarthika entity. That stone is only vyavaharika, not paramarthika. The vyavaharika toe hit against vyavaharika stone. So I have a vyavaharika injury. I put vyavaharika medicine and then bandage, and then vyavaharika I get that gets cured. That's all. Sarvam vyavaharika meva. It is not paramarthika. Intimate experience, intimacy, then people jump to a conclusion that it is real. No, we hear, no, I saw with my own eyes, okay? Therefore it is real, therefore it is true. Well, we see with many things with our own eyes. Blue sky we see with our eyes, right? Everything, lot of things we see with our eyes. Just because I see with my own eyes does not guarantee that it is Paramarthika. There are books, no? There are books illustrating eyes can deceive. My eyes can deceive me. And then there are pictures, there are diagrams, pictures. Then they say, is it a staircase going up, or is it something like some other thing? You look at one direction, and you look at one way, it looks as if it's a staircase, it's going up. Look at another way, it looks like it is coming down. And then they draw a circle, and then there are lines, and then is it a real circle? To my eyes, it does not look like a circle. It looks like some balloon shape, some funny shape, some odd shape, but it is a real circle. Eyes can deceive. What I say, what I see with my own eyes is not a guarantee that it has to be true, it has to be real, Paramarthika. I was under the impression for a long time, that the eye can be deceived in terms of shape, size, etc. It may be deceived. Okay, that I was willing to, I accepted. But I was under the impression that the eye cannot be deceived, right, with reference to color. I thought so. I was thinking my eyes will not deceive me with reference to color. Then I came to see a book. There they have presented different colors surrounded by some other colors. There is something color, some color is there, and then adjacently another picture is there. In that some other color combination is given. Now the question is, what is the color of the central dot there? My eye said they are different colors, very pakka different colors. But then, to my surprise, when I excluded the other colors, kept a paper and all that, covered the other colors, I saw the colors are the same. But in the background of other colors, it appeared to be different colors. Then I accepted that eyes can deceive with reference to color also. So that is, I thought this is red and that is pink. And finally it's turned out both are pink only. Both are pink colors. What I say, that there is, I intimately experience. It's not a guarantee that it is truth. That's how it is. Even dream, our experience of dream, that every dream experience is very, very intimate, no? That's why in the dream experience we say it is real. We consider it's a real in dream. But it is all very intimate. Every dream is very intimate. But then intimacy of the experience does not mean that that's how it is, that it is there. Therefore, that is the criterion for Satyam is Avaditatvam, not separated, not cancelled, not dismissed by anything else at any point of time. This and this alone is the criterion of truth, not continuity, utility, intimacy of experience, etc. And then commonness of all perception. These are not the criterion to arrive at the truth value of an entity. So, avaditatvam, avaditam satyam. What is satyam? Avaditam satyam. We see in Tattvabodhana, trishu kaleshu. What does not undergo bada, negation at any point of time is satyam. So, this is all therefore, this pratibhasika, vyavaharika, both are kalpita on Atma in Brahman. Rajvam bhujangamahaiva pratibhasitam. We don't have problems with this word illusory, projection, superimposition. We don't have any problems with these words. That is to say, we don't misunderstand these words. We don't confine its word meaning, right? So in books we see the world is illusory. Then if the world is illusory, then how do I keep on seeing it? Then how am I affected by that? So the illusory here, they need to be seen in the proper perspective. The point conveyed is that the truth is something else. Atma, the Sakshi, Brahman is the truth. That is what is conveyed by words such as Pratibhasikam, Vyavaharikam. That's all. Okay. That is for the meaning of the verses. I have tried to whatever that I could sum up, whatever I could bring, right, in my mind, I explain the verses, the meaning. A very beautiful verse. Here there is the word namami here. I may not going to say a lot on that, but it's a very beautiful word. Namami, I bow down. Prataha namami, I bow to that truth, that entity which is Atma, Brahma, Ishvara. Namami, that namaha, as I said, is an expression. It is an expression of an appreciation. You appreciate what is. In your mind, you understand the nature, the value, the importance of an object, and you appreciate it. Namami, namaha, namaskara is an expression of our appreciation. When I say namaste to you, I have an appreciation in my mind. What I see as you is not that name form, that body, the mind, that personality. That is not the truth of you. The truth of you is Atma, which is the truth of me, the individual as well. So, in you, in that name form, I appreciate the truth, the true entity in you. Ishvara is manifest as you, the person. And then when you come to me, I have an appreciation. I have an opportunity here. I have an occasion here to appraise it again, to appreciate it again. It's not reappreciation. It is appreciation again. Once more I appreciate. What do I appreciate? The beauty of this manifestation, called the person, called the body, called the mind, with all its color, the colorful personality. Everyone is colorful. Right? Colorful mind, colorful thinking, colorful. And I appreciate that. So, Ishvara, suppose I am a bhakta, I am a devotee. To me, Ishvara appears in this particular name and form, invoking in me that higher thinking. I am able to appreciate Ishvara in this person. I am able to appreciate Ishvara in this particular object, manifest as this object. So when I see a flower, when I see the table, when I see the clock, when I see anything, when I see nature, when I see a person, I am able to invoke, I am able to bring out the appreciative me in me. That is what is expressed as Namaha. If you had not come, then perhaps that appreciation, that moment, I may not have that appreciation. Because you came to say hello to me, that moment was filled by this great appreciation, this ennobling appreciation of the truth of Ishvara. So at homes, in Indian homes, in olden days, when somebody, an unknown, even a stranger, when the person comes, in those days, people just had to walk the distances. They did not have vehicles, and many could not afford vehicles. And there was there was no money, not so much money in circulation, and then people had fewer things, very fewer things, not like what all we have today. So people had to walk If they had to travel, go to places, they had to walk. And then walking means it is slow, right? Every day the person may walk 20, 30, 40 kilometers, and not more. And then the person has to rest at night. At the evening time, the person may have to rest for the overnight, and then next day morning the person goes on. So the guest, unknown person comes. And there was trust. There was trust in the minds of the people. We trust. If I meet someone, a stranger, I trust. I don't start with distrust. I start with trust. This was the attitude prevailing. Now, when someone comes, then that person was looked upon as Vishnu. Atithi is Vishnu, Mahavishnu. The Lord has come in the form of this unknown person, guest. That is the vision, that is the appreciation. Then, what does it invoke in me? It invokes the empathy, the empathy in me. Oh, this person has been walking for so long, must be tired, must be hungry, must need a wash, okay, and then must be needing some place to rest. Like I would need if I were going, if I were traveling, this is what I would need. When I am hungry, I will need some food. When I am tired, I will just need some shelter to rest. That's all. Not to own, but to rest. And then I may need a wash, etc. So some nice words, some kushalam they say, are you doing well, are you fine, and then what is you, and then just some few nice warm words of warmth. So I would expect from someone, and that I invoke that empathizing person in me, and then I pay attention to the guest, and then whatever that I could offer, I offer. So if that person had not come, that feeling of that satisfaction of having helped a person, right, that would not have happened. And therefore, Atithi, the guest, is looked upon as Vishnu, Lord itself, coming in the form of this guest. And then whatever help, whatever assistance I could do, I do, and then that the person takes leave and then goes. So there is the bhavana there. So what I say, the seeing something, using something, interacting with something, with someone, that gives an opportunity. It is an opportunity to invoke the higher self in me. Not the lower self, the quarreling, distrusting, fighting, and then that is a lower self in me, but then it is an opportunity to invoke the higher self. The higher self in me is trusting, is pure, right, is satisfied, is loving, caring, helpful as far as possible, right? That is my higher self. Having trust, this is my higher self. I appreciate when that higher self in me, the nobler self in me, is invoked. That is invoked. Right? So that fills my moment, makes that moment worthy. So that opportunity is an opportunity to invoke the higher self in me, right? And here, when I look at the world, when I look at people, when I look at things, when I use things, then there is this, I invoke the appreciation. Appreciating me, I invoke in me. And then when I invoke that, then I see the goodness in an object. Suppose I have a flower, no? Oh, this is all faded flower. This is faded now, all right. But when it was there, when it was in the plant, in the morning when I took from the plant, it was fresh, it was fragrant, it has color, the tenderness, the softness of a flower petal, no, is really amazing. How soft it feels, how tender it is, how colorful it is. That appreciation a flower invokes in me. I appreciate the beauty of this flower. Right? So looking at a flower, I am able to invoke that appreciative self in me. when I look at things, and then that appreciation makes that moment worthy, full. I have fully lived that moment. Okay? So when I look at the world, I see it full of it's all Ishvara, manifestation of Ishvara, and therefore, and that I keep on looking at things, and then I keep on interacting. That means every moment, every minute, I have this opportunity, this great opportunity to appreciate, to live that moment fully. What a great moment it is, that it is lived to its fullness. I have lived that moment. So that appreciative person, invoking the appreciative person in me is very, very important. Rather than a non-appreciative me. Critical in the sense, no, like negatively critical. Looking at when I look at you, this fellow must be a liar. This fellow should not be trusted. How do I know that? What is the basis for me to start with that? Rather than invoking that, if I can see that what is good, what is worthy in it, it always helps to look at the good side, the noble side, the useful side, right? The higher side of an entity. The famous example of half full glass, you all know, right? Half full glass. It is half full. That's the truth of that. That is the truth. But then one fellow says it is half empty. It is true. But still, there is an appreciation. The focus is on what is empty, that is missing, that is wanting, lacking. That focus is on that. And then other fellow says it is half full. Okay. So there, again, that is also a truth. But then the focus is on what is there, right? Rather than looking at what is not, looking at what is. So too, if I look at things are impermanent. Yes, I know that. And then people have their limitations. Yes, that is also I know that. That also I know that. They have their own frailties, human frailty, weaknesses. Yes, it is there. I know that. Why human frailty? Why others' frailties? I know that I am frail by myself. I have so many frailties by myself. So many weaknesses, right? Unpredictability I have. Undependability I have. Few weaknesses I have, defects I have, incompleteness I have. So it is not that the other fellow alone has that. I know that I also have this. But then that does not, I don't stop with that, but then I say, what is there in me? Is there in me some goodness? Is there in me a wish, a fervent wish to remove, to take care of the lacks, the wants, the deficiencies? Am I trying to remove, to be free from the deficiency? That is more important. I am deficient is a fact, but then the more important thing is I am trying to be free from the deficiency is more important, right? That I am deficient, if I stop with that, then my appreciation of myself is not complete. But if I look at that, I am trying to be free from the deficiencies. Then that attempt I am trying, then there is a fuller appreciation. So when I look at things, I appreciate what is and what is the higher nature of that entity. And looking at a thing, transacting with an entity is an opportunity for me to appreciate the higher truth in that, the glory in it. Therefore, namami, the word is a beautiful word. It refers to an expression. Namaha, when I say, that's an expression of an appreciative mind, appreciative person, appreciating what is there, appreciating the goodness, appreciating the higher truth in every entity. So, the more I invoke that, then the more I am satisfied. My interaction with that entity is satisfying. And vice versa too also. I invoke the goodness in the other person. I invoke the higher self in the other person, which again is rewarding for the other person also. I invoke the higher person in me. When I invoke the higher self in me and I interact with you, then I invoke the higher self in you also, by which you also feel rewarded. Having spoken to me, having interacted with me, you feel rewarded, you feel happy, it's memorable, you want to see me again, you want to talk to me again. That sort of a great interaction it invokes. Therefore, if I invoke the higher self, right, then I invoke the higher self in you also. And there is something, suppose there is a person. This person is a matter of fact person, okay? And then that person looks at the defects, the shortcomings, the failures, deficiencies of the other persons, and then keeps on pointing out that, hey, you are not punctual, you are not tidy, you are not neat, you are not dependable, you are telling lies, right? Keeps on telling this about the other person. Now, this other person also is painfully aware of these, right? Suppose I tell lies, I know that, right? I know that. You may not know that I am telling lies. You may not know. Maybe you may find out. Palanal thirudan, orunal agapaduvan. I go on telling lies, one day you will find out. Hey, this fellow is lying. You will find out. But for now, you may think that I am telling the truth. You may believe. But I know that I am telling lies. When I am telling a lie, I know that. Tannanjarivadu poyyarkana. What I say, when I say something, I know whether it is true or not, whether I am lying or not, I know. What is therefore, everyone generally is aware of one's limitation, one's failure, one's shortcoming. Generally, one is aware of. There may be occasions when one overlooks, right? But one is aware of that, and that is not a pleasant thing. Definitely. Suppose I am useless, I am helpless, I am very miserable, I am not wanted, and then right now I have no talent, and then I am painfully aware of it. This I don't want. This is like a wound, like a wound inside. Go on thinking on it, I feel very painful. And then suppose you go on telling me, hey, you are useless, you are helpless, you don't have no talent, etc., right? Then already I know that, and already I have some unpleasantness about that. Already it hurts me, and then you are adding salt, right, to the wound, and therefore already I know that, and then I am uncomfortable with that, and then you are going telling me you are useless, worthless, etc., etc. Therefore, I don't want more pain. Next time when I see you, वेला इरुक्कु बहुत बिजी हूँ, I am very busy, आपसे बात I will talk to you later. I will just run away from you because I know you are going to keep on add salt injury to heap injury to me. But then suppose you invoke something good in me, something worthy in me, some good trait in me, some usefulness in me, then you invoke that. Then I feel good about that. That's like a balm, like an ointment to my hurt. In fact, I want to be that, my goodness in that, my good trait in that, my value, my worth. That is what I want about myself. Then when you invoke that, I find myself accepted, right? Accepted. I am accepted. That is, the goodness in me is accepted, and then that is nurtured. You nurture my goodness, my nobility, my usefulness. You nurture that. When you nurture that, I feel satisfied. Talking to you, I feel satisfied. Next time when I see you, I would like to meet you again. That meeting you is memorable for me, satisfying for me, because You invoked the higher self in me. Then I like you because you make me feel satisfied. You make me feel happy. Therefore, I like you. Right? Then I start liking you. Then I start listening to you. I think about you also. I think about your good side, your nobility. I think about, right? And then I believe in you, and believe in your. I understand you, and I listen to you. Suppose you say some word of advice, I listen to that because my heart is open. Then I have not assumed. Remember that ninja. No, you are going to hurt me. Khabardar. Ready, beware. You are going to hurt me. Ready. I don't feel I have to defend myself against you. I open up. Then when I open up, what you say, what you feel, what you think, all that, no, that goes deep into me. Remember, anything that we learn, that deep heart, no, that alone we really learn. What registers in our self, in our person deeply, that alone becomes our personality, that becomes our character. When we learn something, then when I learn with all my heart, with my deep heart, right? They say, no, that what is that? Subconscious, right? The subconscious. So the real learning happens, real changes happen when I see something in the subconscious heart. That is a deep heart, deep mind. When I look at something superficially, that does not register in me, I do not take it. Suppose you tell me something, you do this way, that is better, you tell me. But as long as I don't see the value for it, I won't take it. ये तो बोलेगा, कुछ तो लोग कहते हैं. People will say something. लोगों का काम कहना, बहस करना. People talk. So this fellow is talking to me. Hey, do this, do that, do that, do that. Oh, come on. I won't buy it. I won't take it. I won't integrate it as part of it because it has not gone into my deep, that heart, that personality. We are governed by our subconscious mind. We are governed by that. The way we interact, the way we see things, the way we look at situations, events, happenings, behavior, how we look at that is purely governed by our subconscious mind alone. How I may express differently. So I may be very angry at you, but then I say, there is one again, no? There is this fellow, a villain, okay? In a film, villain says, I am a professional. Okay? Professional what? I am a professional mercenary. Okay? I am a professional mercenary. So what? I don't get angry. This fellow says, I don't get angry because I am a professional. What do? I just kill. This fellow does not get angry, just pulls the trigger, that's all. Shoots, that's all. Okay? It is better to get angry and not shoot. Okay? That is definitely superior. So this fellow doesn't like it, does not show the anger, but then just kills. What I say is, so showing is something different, right? Expressing, I may smile, I may laugh, but I may be sad within, right? I may cry, but I may be satisfied within. That is also possible. No, happy, tears of happiness and all we have, tears of appreciation, right? So, 1 minute. Okay. So, what I learn with my core, the subconscious mind governs me. My behavior, my outlook, right? How I look at things, how I look at people, it's all governed by my subconscious mind. All important learning, all worthy learning takes place at the subconscious level only. In childhood, we could learn fast. Why? Because our subconscious mind was at the foremost. When you go to school, we were very quick learners. Because everything goes in the subconscious mind. That is, everything learned deeply. It makes a deep impression in me. But as I grow, I start putting on the mask more and more of this layer, this superficial, the surface mind. Now, this namami refers to an appreciation from the core of the heart. From the core of the heart, I appreciate what is this Ishvara, and then all this is manifestation of that great Lord. And this I see as an opportunity to invoke the higher self, the appreciative me, what is there, what is noble in it, what is good in it, that appreciative mind I invoke. Therefore, and then this is called, in the terms of religion, it is called devotional, prayerful. When we look at the same thing, namami, invoking the core person in me, in the framework, in the standpoint of devotion, we say that I am prayerful. I am a prayerful person. A prayerful person is one. It's not just goes on repeating, turning the beats, goes on muttering. That is not prayerful person. But then a prayerful person is one in whom that higher appreciation of what is of Ishvara the person is able to bring up, right? Invoke. That is a prayerful person. I connect to the total. I connect to what is always. This is the namami, invoking the devotional, the prayerful person in me. When I say namaha, I invoke, I practice to invoke the prayerful person in me. Prayer is, after all, a wish for something which is worth having, right? When I say, may you be happy, that is something worthy. May you be prosperous. May you be happy. May you all live in harmony. May I live in harmony with you. This is a good thing, a noble thing. That's a prayerful person. The more I invoke the prayerful person in me, right, the more meaningful is my time. The more meaningful is my life. Therefore, this namaha is, in brief, an expression. This is an expression. Doing namaha is an expression of invoking that appreciative self in me. I am open, my eyes are open, my heart is open, I appreciate what is, I appreciate you, right? I appreciate the goodness, I appreciate the nobility, I appreciate that. So, namami. Here, prataha namami. I invoke the prayerful person in me. I invoke that whereby I am able to appreciate what is there, right? Asesham murtau idam sarvam. I can invoke the sakshi. I can invoke the purity. I can invoke the fullness. The cheer I can invoke. When I invoke in me, I can see in you also. So namami, when I do that, I invoke that pure me in me, pure self in me, and I can appreciate the pure self in the other person as well. A very beautiful word, namaha, namami, very beautiful word. Our Swamiji, Dayananda Swamiji, has spoken on this namaha. This was the theme for a week-long, 7-day lecture in Baroda some years back, if I am right. So I think it's available in the CD. I think the CD is available. You can listen to that namaha. Just one word, namaha. What does it mean? Okay. So, a very beautiful word. It is not a servitude. Namaha, I bow down, I prostrate, and then I do. It does not. It's not a word of indicating servitude. Okay, but it's a word invoking an appreciation, indicating an appreciation, an expression of appreciation, not of servitude. Okay. So I have said very little. Ati alpam uktam maya. So, okay. With that, we will conclude this Prata Smarana. Once again, we will chant the verses and then conclude. Om Prata Smarami Hridi Samspuradaatmatattvam Satchit Sukham Paramahamsagatim Turiyam Yatsvatna Jagara Sushuktimavaiti Nityam Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham Naja Bhuta Sangha Pratar Bhajami Manasa Vachasa Magamyam Vacho Vibhanti Nikhila Yadanugrahena Yanneti Neti Vachanair Nigama Avochu Deva Deva Majamachyutam Ahuragriyam Deva Deva Majamachyutam Ahuragriyam Praternamami Tamasas Paramarkavarnam Praternamami Tamasas Paramarkavarnam Purnam Sanatana Padam Purushottamākhyam Yasminnidam jagadashesham asheshamurtau Rajvam bhujangamayiva Pratibhasitam vai. The last word, vai, indeed, in fact, in truth, a nice ending. Indeed, that's how it is. That is the truth. A nice word to end with. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari